When I was a kid, I never had a PSP. I used to want one kind of, but I just never asked my parents to buy me one. I was just content with playing games on my PS3 and on my PS2. The only reason I wanted one was to play Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, because I was going through a major Kingdom Hearts phase in my younger years. Fast forward to a few months ago, I ended up going to one of my local game stores and I saw a PSP for very cheap, and also picked up a game my homie was telling me about. I basically use the PSP for work when I have downtime and when I'm not trying to sit on my phone for an hour. With that being said, I had a realization that this handheld might be the most innovative and convenient console of all time. It's literally like a mini PS2 inside of your pocket. Like, think about this. You could be out in public, get bored, or need to pass the time by fast, and you could pull out your PSP and play like God of War or GTA. So this made me curious about the history of the PSP and how it came to be. At the end of E3 2003, Sony announced the PSP. The guy talking about it didn't show much or tell that much about the console. All he did was talk about how the PSP was his baby and how he could take it outside of his incubator. He showed the kind of disc that the PSP uses, and at the end he said it's the Walkman of the 21st century. And if you're young like me and don't know what a Walkman is, it's basically like an old iPod made by Sony in 1979. Fast forward a year later at E3 2004, they revealed the PSP. Now that reveal was very hard. They don't do things for gaming like how they used to, and also RIP E3. In the conference he talks about their target audience, which is 18 to 35-year-old men. And the reason behind that is, in his words, this group is one of the largest on the PlayStation 2, and we know they buy more games with more disposable income. Even though this is back in 2004, it kind of rubs me the wrong way, because people say that nowadays gaming companies only care about money, but for what I just read, they've always been like that. But they're a business, so I obviously get it. You gotta make your bread. He goes on to talk about the UMD and how it's the future, and how it's used to run high quality games, movies, and music. The rest of the conference he just shows different launch titles to expect, and then shows Spider-Man 2 and some music video running on the PSP. The PSP released in Japan on December 12th, 2004, in North America, March 24th, 2005, and in Power regions on September 1st, 2005. In the US, it sold for $250. People were concerned about the price because it was $20 more than it was in Japan. It also was $100 more than the Nintendo DS, which was the PSP's main competitor. The launch in North America was a success though. In the first 2 days, the PSP sold 500,000 units. The handheld launched with games like Spider-Man 2, Metal Gear Acid, and Tony Hawk Underground 2. I haven't played any of these games, so I can't give my opinion on them. Maybe someday in the future I will. But from seeing all the titles that released alongside the PSP, they seem like pretty good games. On September 13th, 2007, Square Enix released Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core on the PSP. The game is a prequel to the original Final Fantasy VII released in 1997. Now looking at it, it seems they wanted to release Crisis Core as like a 10th anniversary to Final Fantasy VII. You play as Zack Fair, who is a part of a military organization called Soldier, and he is assigned for looking for a missing member called Genesis. The game's timeline is from the war between Shinra and Wutai all the way to right before the beginning of FF7. I'm in the middle of playing it right now and it's pretty good, and the combat system is pretty fun with the slot machine mechanic called Digital Mind Wave. A cool effect about the Digital Mind Wave is that it's thought to represent Zack's thoughts, which is why he has flashbacks when the reel spins. Crisis Core was the best-selling game across all regions from April through September of 2007. In the US, it sold 300,000 copies in its first month. Square Enix sales directors said it was an incredible success, calling it a must-have PSP game in 2008. On March 4th, 2008, God of War Chains of Olympus was released. The game is a prequel to the original God of War. Throughout the game, Kratos is guided by Athena, who instructs him how to find the sun god Helios. The gameplay is pretty much the same and is a hack and slash combo focused game. The game was received well by critics and to this day has the highest Metacritic score of any PSP game with a score of 91. The game sold 3.2 million copies worldwide and also won awards like Best Looking Game on the System, Best PSP Action Game, and Best Use of Sound. I'm actually in a deep playthrough of this game right now, so if you have a PSP and you like God of War and you haven't played this game yet, I think you should give this game a try. Daxter released on March 14th, 2006. It takes place in between Jak and Daxter and Jak 2. You play as Daxter unlike the other games, and the whole game he's just exterminating bugs and trying to find Jak. It's a platformer and the combat is pretty basic, but it's still enjoyable. He has different equipment that can be used for many different things and puzzles in the game. When I played through the game, I noticed that it was kind of hard and sometimes requires a decent amount of thought to get past certain puzzles and places in the game. So while presented as a kid's game, I would imagine it'd be hard for younger kids to play. But maybe I'm just bad at it. In September of 2019, it was calculated that the game sold 4.2 million copies, and is also looked at as one of the best PSP games to date. The game is very good to me, and I beat it like in a week. Before I get to the last game, I have a few honorable mentions that I just want to shout out. We have Tekken Dark Resurrection, GTA Vice City Stories, Persona 3, God of War Ghost of Sparta, and Midnight Club LA Remix. These are just some of the other games that I enjoy from the PSP. So, last but not least, we have my favorite game on the PSP, Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Birth by Sleep came out on January 9th, 2010 for North America. It's a prequel to Kingdom Hearts 1, taking place 10 years before the first game. You play as all the characters featured on the cover of the game, and that's Ventus, Aqua, and Terra, and they all have their own separate stories that happen simultaneously. They all set out to find Master Xehanort, who went missing, and they also help worlds from the Unverse. I remember when I was a kid, I used to want to play BBS very bad. I ended up borrowing one of my friend's PSPs and ended up beating the game in just a few days. Even though it didn't have Sora or any of the other characters that I was familiar with, I still enjoyed it. The game was received well by critics, receiving a score of 82 on Metacritic, and by the end of the year, the game has sold over 1.3 million copies worldwide. BBS also won awards like Best of E3 Award in the PSP category. I'm doing another playthrough of the game on my PSP right now, and it's still as good as I remember. So if you haven't played this game and you like Kingdom Hearts, and you have a PSP lying around, you need to play this game. It's the best game on the PSP, man. The PSP came in many models. First, we have the PSP 1000, which was the OG model that they came out with. Second, we have the PSP 2000, also known as the PSP Slim, which was a lighter version of the first one. Third, we have the PSP 3000, which brought a brighter screen, carrying on the name PSP Bright, and also had a better battery. Lastly, we have the PSP Go, which changed the way the PSP looked by adding up a slide-up feature to it, similar to some phones back then. This was the last model they dropped before they made the PSP Vita in 2012, and just a couple years later in 2014, they discontinued the PSP. To me, the PSP is a classic. It has great games, it's very reliable, and it's just revolutionary. It's such a small handheld, and it's able to run full-on games that you would play on a console at home. So, if you enjoyed the video, could you do me a favor and just hit the like button? it'd be very appreciated. And with that being said, I'll catch you on the next video.